Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is David Novak. I have been reading the 3-volume set, The Crusades by Stephen Runciman, and am now in the kingdom of Acre, which was still nominally the kingdom of Jerusalem. They had lost Jerusalem by that point. And so the Pope has decided to initiate what has come down to us as the Fourth Crusade, which winds up being the sack of Constantinople. It was not intended as such to begin with. So the Crusaders embarked, and they took with him the son of the deposed emperor of Constantinople. He had been ousted in a coup, a palace coup. He and his son were imprisoned, and his eyes were put out. His son later escaped, and so he would join up with the Crusaders. So they arrived at the door of Constantinople, and the would-be emperor promised the Crusaders everything. He said, put me on the throne, not back, because he hadn't been on it, but put me on the throne. I will be welcomed by the population, and I will give you money. I will give you everything that you want. I will assist you then in going out to attack Egypt or wherever you want to go. I will help you with that. So once they get to the door, the current emperor sitting on the throne, who is pretty much a good-for-nothing, gets scared, and he absconds. He takes a bag of jewelry or whatever and leaves the place, and anarchy breaks out. The palace guards or somebody says, here, let's pull the former emperor from his dungeon, albeit he is blind, and we'll say he is back. He is back on the throne. They do that. The Crusaders insist that their man be raised to the throne with him jointly. So it is done. Of course, other power brokers in the city decide that it is time to make their play. And Runciman talks about one little incident here. Probably in order to frighten Alexius IV from the throne, he organized a riot in January 1204. But its only concrete result was the destruction of the great statue of Athena, the work of Phidias, which stood in the forum facing the west. It was hacked to pieces by a drunken mob because the goddess seemed to be beckoning to the invaders. My interest here is not in the politics of the situation. I want to read to you a paragraph describing the sack of Constantinople. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. The sack of Constantinople is unparalleled in history. For 9 centuries, the great city had been the capital of Christian civilization. It was filled with works of art that had survived from ancient Greece and with the masterpieces of its own exquisite craftsmen. The Venetians indeed knew the value of such things. Wherever they could, they seized treasures and carried them off to adorn the squares and churches and palaces of their town. But the Frenchmen and Flemings were filled with a lust for destruction. They rushed in a howling mob down the streets and through the houses, snatching up everything that glittered and destroying whatever they could not carry, pausing only to murder or to rape or to break open the wine cellars for their refreshment. Neither the monasteries nor churches nor libraries were spared. In St. Sophia itself, drunken soldiers could be seen tearing down the silken hangings and pulling the great silver iconostasis to pieces, while sacred books and icons were trampled underfoot. While they drank merrily from the altar vessels, a prostitute set herself on the patriarch's throne and began to sing a ribald French song. Nuns were ravished in their convents. Palaces and hovels alike were entered and wrecked. Wounded women and children lay dying in the streets. For 3 days, the ghastly scenes of pillage and bloodshed continued till the huge and beautiful city was a shambles. Even the Saracens would have been more merciful, cried the historian Nicetas, and with truth. He continues, but I just want to report that at this juncture, I feel that I have gotten so much benefit from this history of the Crusades by Stephen Runciman. I am glad that I did not pick a different book in my possession which only covered the First Crusade. I believe getting the whole movement is worthwhile. Now, a lot of this was covered in Gibbon, which I read earlier in the year and late last year. And Gibbon sort of whetted not my appetite so much, but whetted my familiarity. So the names were familiar, and some of the incidents I vaguely read about in Gibbon, but I could not understand so much. And Runciman's narrative is so crystal clear. He makes everything understandable. Well, I take that back. I mean, you know, when you're reading about this, you've got so many people, so many generations of people and successive protagonists that all have the same name. And that's a common tribulation with study in this area, I believe. So I by no means have a meticulous understanding of what he writes about, but I have gotten a much better understanding of the general sweep of things, the nature of the Crusades. And I understand that this book, the Kingdom of Acre, as he refers to it, although it knew itself still as the Kingdom of Jerusalem, is a story of decline and coming undone. So I just thought I would read that little paragraph. The writer Theodore Dalrymple, if anybody remembers him, would point to that paragraph and with an aghast expression say, this is what happens when you let the liberals have charge of anything. I don't say that it has anything to do with liberals, but he tends to make things fit into that framework. So I thought I would share that. Thank you very much for stopping by my channel.